This is the Calvin D Project, where we interview interesting people driven to change the trajectories of those they serve through learning, teaching, and writing. I want to thank you for being here. We're pleased to welcome Natalie J. Natalie J, I appreciate you for joining the Calvin D Project podcast this week. Gospel music is so important to the culture, so I thank you for being here. Make sure you stick around because some of the most powerful content is the advice portion is at the end. So right before we dive in, make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and hit that bell notification icon so that you can get more episodes like this one. So Miss Natalie J, tell me a little bit about yourself and your ministry.
Absolutely. Thank you, Calvin. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so glad to be here. But a little bit about myself and my ministry. So I'm originally from Lexington, Tennessee. Grew up, born and raised there, began singing at the young age of 9 years old. I began singing in our church choir, and my grandmother, who has a huge influence on my love of gospel music and just church and overall, put me in a community choir called the Agape Choir. And so I continued to sing in the choir, sing on the praise and worship team. And my husband, who I love so much, brought me to the lovely city of Memphis, Tennessee, where I currently reside. And so we've been here for almost 15 years. And so this is where I currently call home. I am the praise and worship leader at Breath of Life Christian Center, and I also sing in the choir. I'm a mother of two. Chase, my eldest, is 9 years old, and I have a little baby who's almost a year old. She's 10 months. Her name is Isley. If you can tell, I'm a lover of music, and she's named after the Isley Brothers. That's just a little bit about me. I love God. Both of my grandfathers, one has passed, were pastors. Going to church events, none of that was an option. I was required to. I've always been a church girl, Southern girl. That's just a little bit about Natalie J.
PK's kid. Okay.
Yes.
You've been very transparent with your testimony. What gave you the confidence to share your experiences to connect with people through your ministry and your music?
So honestly, Calvin, I have not always been a transparent person, so that's a really good question. I've always been very closed off as far as my feelings and just sharing my feelings, personal information. And so I remember when my grandmother, who has a huge influence on my life and me singing and loving church and God, I remember when she actually passed on my son's 5th birthday, the same day of his birthday. I didn't let anyone see me cry. That was a pretty pivotal moment in my life where I realized that I was so closed off that I was almost harboring and internalizing all of my feelings, and it was beginning to take a toll on me. In that moment, I realized that I needed to, be human and allow others to see me grieve and help me through that grieving process, because it was a very detrimental loss. But fast forward to 2019, a few years ago, I found out I was pregnant, and I was going to have a little baby girl. And so everything was going great with the pregnancy until it wasn't. And so I ended up losing my baby girl and delivering her stillborn. And in that moment is when, for the first time in my life, I felt very angry and upset with God. And so in that moment, I've been in church all my life, know the Bible. I've always had a relationship with God, know what it feels to experience the Holy Spirit, but never had I ever, until that point, heard the voice of God. Going through this process where I'm grieving the loss of my baby girl, God spoke to me. And in that moment, He told me to write. And so from that point in where I was able to hear His voice and be very intentional in the direction that He was leading me in, I knew that I needed to share and be more open and be more transparent, because God was giving me something. He was putting, music and ministry inside of me to share. Now, again, I've always sang, always been in church choir, praise and worship teams, but I've never had the personal desire to share any music or any ministry with the world or with others. I just kept it to myself and with my church family. And so it wasn't until that point where I lost my baby girl that God allowed me to then minister to others. And in that ministry was me being transparent, sharing my testimony and everything that God has helped to lead and just kind of guide me through in the loss of my baby girl. And then in other things, God has always been with me. There's been several trials throughout my upbringing that He has essentially helped me to overcome. And so just sharing all of that with the world is in essence healing for me as well. And so as I continue to share my ministry, my story, other people are responding and saying that it's helping them get through whatever season or situations that they're in. And that continues to encourage me as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, in those situations like that, we feel so alone, and it feels like you're just dealing with it all by yourself.
Yeah.
No one else has ever experienced that, you know what I mean? So it kind of helps you.
Absolutely.
With music being so powerful, and it's so important for our generation to be able to connect to the next generation through gospel music, it's also important to keep the music alive of the ones that paved the way for us. There are current artists, and then there are the artists that are new on the scene. Who would you say are your musical mentors?
Well, I wouldn't say mentors. These are individuals who inspire me, my music, and just overall, their music is very touching and it's very real. Some of the individuals, okay, so I'm going to go back to when I was younger. I'm going to give you a couple individuals. So Yolanda Adams, CeCe Winans, growing up, listening to their music, I admired them, I idolized them, I loved their voices, I loved their music. So initially, it's Yolanda Adams and CeCe Winans for me. Love, love, love them. To more recent years, Jonathan McReynolds' music is very moving, very touching. I love the realness and the uniqueness of his music and his just overall gift. He has an ability, he has a way of allowing the Holy Spirit to move him in ways that it's not the shouting music, the different type of gospel music that still reaches the individuals that he's intended to reach. I also love and adore Isabel Davis. She's what you see is what you get. That's who she really is. And I'm just going to continue to be transparent. I'm sometimes leery of meeting other gospel mainstream artists because I'm afraid that my love for them and their music, and then when I first meet them, is going to be a little different if they're not the way that they portray themselves. You know what I mean? And so I told Isabel, I was like, I had no doubt that she would be exactly who you are, because you can just tell. You can tell she has this light and this ray about her. I mean, she is this wonderful, outstanding woman of God. And she does. She walks it, she lives it, she breathes it, and it comes through in the music and her ministry. And so those are some individuals I truly admire. I wouldn't call them my mentors, I will say yet, to this day, but hopefully, maybe one day.
The industry is changing every day, and some people say that going indie is where it's at. There are also a lot of very talented indie artists. Now, how is the scene for artists out in Memphis? Is it supportive, or how's the scene out there?
Yeah, absolutely. I think not just Memphis, overall, like there's been a huge amount of support for my ministry and my music, and it just continues to grow and build. So not just Memphis, there are some of my fellow gospel and non-gospel artists that are really close friends of mine that closely and hugely support me. And they also sing background on my music. And so that's very supportive in its own, because we spend a lot of time in the studio and they don't have to do that. They don't have to give their time and their gifts. But yes, very supportive. And I would say that indie, as an independent artist, it's rewarding to see that all of your hard work and your personal monetary sacrifices are being seen, felt, heard. When I see or hear my song being played on the radio, or see someone, sharing, hey, someone shared this song with me, nice to meet you, things like that. It's very rewarding to me. Now it's difficult because we don't have the big machines behind us, pushing our marketing, pushing our music. And so it's all out of pocket. So in that aspect, it's different, but God has continued to provide and open doors for me. So I'm very grateful and I'm very blessed.
What are some projects that you're working on at this time?
So I love to sing. I do. I love to sing. But my number one greatest love, my passion is writing music. And so I do write all of my songs. I write gospel, praise and worship, and CCM songs. So I'm currently working on a CCM, Christian Contemporary music project. And I'm very, very excited about that. And just showing a different side of Natalie J, not just the singer, but also the songwriter. And I don't just write urban gospel songs. I also write praise and worship music. I write CCM music for other churches. And so I want to show that side of me. And so this will be just a display and a showcase of my writing ability. And so I'm very excited about that. And that project will be coming out this year.
I heard it here. All right.
Yes, you are the first to hear.
I did an interview with inspirational hip hop artist Natalie J. And if you haven't heard that interview, I encourage you guys to check it out. And he was saying, and I'm paraphrasing, that inspirational hip hop or Christian hip hop music has evolved. And a lot of people are realizing that there are a lot of talented people that are doing inspirational hip hop, and the music has a message. And the artists, they are believers. You've worked with Christian hip hop artist Derek Mount on a couple of projects. What is your position on Christian hip hop music?
I love it. So I was initially kind of torn on the fact that there's all these categories and silos for God's music: Christian, gospel, hip hop, urban, contemporary. There's just all these categories of God's music. That's what I call it. It's God's music. And it's all God's music. We're all trying to reach and bring souls to God and people to God, and believers and non-believers. And so with me, I will work and support any artist. And that's not just Christian artists. Like I work and support artists who, no, I need you to be a lover and a believer of God. You don't necessarily have to do Christian or God music. I'll work with just about anyone who shares my same belief. We don't have to share the same music. And so although I don't consider myself a hip hop artist, I support hip hop Christian artists. I love their music. I love D Minor's music. I love Natalie J's music. I mean, he's just so talented. It's just unbelievable. But he's just, and there, it's also inspiring. It's a different way. But the way that our world is evolving, things such as music, God's music, sometimes has to evolve and adjust with the times. If you think back to when we were growing up, the way people walked or talked or dressed was not the same. So as the time progresses and times change, you have to adjust with the time. Your hair changes, the way you dress changes. Sometimes the way you talk and you walk, it may or may not change depending on who you are. But the same thing for God's music. And so to whereas you have the old school traditional gospel who we grew up listening to and loving, the Shirley Caesars and all of those artists, they're very much appreciated. But you can take that same message that Shirley Caesar is singing and trying to deliver to the Christians, and it can be urban, hip hop, contemporary. You see what I'm saying? And it's the same message. We're reaching the same people. We have the same audience. We have the same goals. And so in the beginning, I was very torn on all of the different categories. I'm like, it's just all God's music. We're all God's people. We just have a different way of communicating it to our audience, because I believe that we're all assigned souls. When we go out on this assignment and we accept the assignment from God to be ministers of music and sharing our testimonies and our stories and creating music for God's people, we accept an assignment. And with that assignment comes souls that are assigned to us. And those souls, we're going to have to be able to reach in our own language.
Who are a couple artists, or to say local artists, that the casual consumer gospel music may or may not know about that we should check out?
Absolutely. Danny Songbird Ross. And it's D-A-N-I, Songbird Ross, R-O-S-S. When I say, baby girl, she can sing her face off, okay? Her range is unbelievable. She is truly anointed. She can reach all the way up into the rafters and sing a high soprano, and she can it's unbelievable how, and when you hear her talk, her voice is so light and so soft, and she can get so low. There was this one recording where it was in the studio, and I was like, who is that's down there that low? They don't need to be that low. And so I played back all of the vocals, and it was Danny. I was like, Danny, now I need you on soprano. Why are you down in? And she's like, I just feel it in my spirit. And she's so funny. But Danny, that's my girl. That's my friend. Her music is amazing. She's a songwriter as well here in Memphis, Tennessee. Daddy Songbird Ross. I always, and any interview, when I'm asked about independent artists, local artists, Danny, my girl, is always who I mention. If you check out her music, I promise you, you will not regret it. I promise you, you will not regret it. So yes, check her out.
I always talk to my guests about having talents that may go beyond the walls of the church. Mm-hmm. It's important to be able to combine your talents and not just pick one or the other. How have you been able to do that with your ministry?
I'm also a children's author. And so with that comes reaching and being able to encourage children in a way. That closely ties into my 9-year-old son, Chase, is a huge influence in both my music and my books. He's what I gauge as it relates to the children's books. He's going to tell me, he's going to keep it brutally honest. He has no filter. He's going to keep it brutally honest with me and let me know if the book is good or bad. And the same with the music. I also use him as a gauge because I want to reach the souls that I'm assigned, but I really want to minister to the young people, to the young generation, because I want to bring those who may not know God closer or have a relationship with God. And so I use him to determine if it's a good song that's going to minister to him, because if it's going to reach a 9-year-old thinks that it's a good song and he likes the music, then others around his age or a little older will like it as well. And so I tie my author and my artist as a musician closely together, because it's all inspiration. It's all, teachable moments. I'm teaching through sharing my testimony through my music, and I'm also teaching children through these books that I write for the children.
For the aspiring artist or writer, what advice would you like to give to an aspiring artist or writer that's getting started?
Mm-hmm. So the best advice, me personally, that I can give to anyone aspiring to be a musician or a writer, to aspire to be anything, is be true to yourself. Don't try to do what other people are doing because you're seeing that they may be getting a little more attention or fame or shine, whatever the case may be. Stay in, this is how I think. There's only one Natalie J. There's only one Natalie J. So I don't need to operate in a sense of comparing myself to others, because I'm going to dress how I want to dress. I'm going to put out the music that I want to put out. I'm going to write what's from my heart. And if you like it, great. If you don't, it's just not meant for you. Operating in the lane of this is me, this is mine, and I don't need to compare or try to be like someone else. Be authentic. Keep it real. Stay true to yourself, please, because at some point it's going to the fakeness will begin to fade. I'll say that. The fakeness will fade, and then you'll be exposed, and then where are you going to be? If you just keep it real from the jump, that you're just it's gonna come through as genuine, and you're gonna reach so many more people. So just please stay genuine and true to yourself. And so a lot of the advice that I've been given from other artists, Isabel Davis being one of them, is to keep going. Don't allow anyone or anything to discourage you. And that's been the common thing of advice, inspiration that I've been given as an independent artist, as a new artist, is keep going. Don't let anyone discourage you. Because I received no's, and I was just like, it just blew my mind. Like, Isabel Davis, who told you no? Like, who was crazy? Who told you no? You know what I mean? And so to look at her and her be so humble and down to earth and say, I received no's, but don't be discouraged. Keep going, because that yes is coming. So just know, if you're an aspiring musician, artist, writer, singer, something, whatever you aspire to do, whatever God has placed on your heart, keep going, because your yes is coming.
For my audience that is wanting to connect with you, how do we find you?
Absolutely. So you can follow me on Instagram. It's Natalie J Music. Follow me and I will follow you back. And then on Facebook, you can follow my artist page at Natalie Jean's Gospel Artist. And then you can visit my website to download any of my songs, see my books, learn more about Natalie J. My website is www.nataliejeans.com, and that's NATALIE JEANS, like bluejeans.com. That's my website.
Natalie J, I want to thank you for being a guest on the Calvin D Project. I'm honored and appreciate you for doing it. For my audience, make sure that you hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and hit that bell notification icon so that you can get more episodes like this one. And I want to thank you again for listening to the Calvin D Project.